Yoga Asana Kinesiology, taken from Mukunda Styles Structural Yoga Therapy. We'll start in Tadasana or mountain pose. This is a baseline body reading pose. The strength focus here is poise and dharana or concentration. The stretch focus here is on your spine and sternum. Virabhadrasana or Warrior I. The focal motion here is on hip adduction and shoulder flexion. The strength focus is hip adductors, the tensor fasciolata, and the middle deltoids. The stretch focus is on the gastrocnemius and the tensor fasciolata. Konasana, side of the hip stretch. The main focal motion here is your hip flexion with adduction. The strength focus is the psoas and the hip adductors. The stretch focus is on your hamstrings and your gluteus medius. Virasana, or tree. The focal motion here is hip abduction with external rotation. The strength focus is straight leg adductors and external rotators, and the stretch focus is to lengthen the spine. Uttita Trikonasana, or extended triangle. The focal motion here is hip flexion, spinal lateral flexion. The strength focus here is in the rectus femoris, the abdominis oblique, and the sternocleidomastoid. The stretch focus is on your hip adductors and your hamstrings. Virabhadrasana II, or Warrior II. The focus here is hip external rotation with abduction, ankle dorsiflexion, and scapular abduction. The strength focus would be hip external rotators and the abductors. The stretch focus, the gastrocnemius, the soleus, and the hip adductors. Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. The focus here is our hip and shoulder flexion and ankle dorsiflexion. The strength focus is on our psoas, our deltoids, and our tibialis anterior. The stretch focus would be our gastrocnemius, our hamstrings, and how we lengthen the spine upward. Setu Bandhasana, or bridge. The focus here is hip extension, knee flexion, scapular adduction with depression. The strength focus in this posture would be for the gluteus maximus, the hamstrings, the middle and the lower trapezius. And the stretch focus would be on the hip flexors and the pectoralis. Urdhva Prasarita Padasana, upward stretched legs. The focus here is on our hips and shoulder flexion and knee extension. The strength focus would be on our psoas, our rectus femoris, our deltoids, and our quadriceps. The stretch focus would be passive hamstrings and gastrocnemius. Salamba Sarvangasana, or supported shoulder stand. The main focus here is our thoracic and shoulder extension, hip and elbow flexion, and scapular adduction. The strength focus could be the latissimus, the triceps, the psoas, the biceps, and the middle trapezius. The stretch focus is your pectorals and your upper trapezius. Jathara Parivartanasana, Abdominal Twist. The focus here is hip adduction and spinal rotation. The strength focus is your hip adductors, abdominis obliques, and your stretch focus is your gluteus medius and latissimus. Apanasana, or energy freeing. The focus here is our spine, our hip and knee flexion, and shoulder adduction. The strength focus is our rectus abdominis, our hip flexors, our latissimus, our triceps, and our pectorals. The stretch focus is our gluteus maximus and our lumbar erector spinae. Dandasana, or stick posture. The main focus here is hip flexion and thoracic extension. Our strength focus is our psoas, our rectus femoris, and our latissimus. The stretch focus is passive hamstrings and the wrist flexors. Janushriyasana, or head to knee. Our main focus is hip flexion with abduction and external rotation. The strength focus is our psoas, our rectus femoris, our gluteus medius, and our external rotators. The stretch focus is adductors, hamstrings, and latissimus. Paschimottanasana, or west side back stretch. The main focus is our hip and spine flexion. The strength focus is our psoas and latissimus. The stretch focus is our hamstrings, erector spinae, and latissimus. Marichasan, or spinal twist. The focal motion here is hip adduction, spine rotation, and shoulder extension. The strength focus is our adductors, abdominis obliques, sternocleidomastoid, and latissimus, and our triceps. The stretch focus is our gluteus medius. Paripurna Navasana, complete boat. Our focus here is hip flexion, knee and spine extension. The strength focus is our psoas, our rectus femoris, our rectus abdominis, and our erector spinae. Our stretch focus is passive hamstrings. Bhujangasana, or Cobra. Our main focus is our thoracic and shoulder extension and scapular adduction. The strength focus here is erector spinae, the triceps, the lower and middle trapezius. Our stretch focus is our pectorals and our rectus abdominis. Salabhasana, or Locust. Our main focus here is our hip, our spine, and knee extension. The strength focus is the hamstrings, the gluteus maximus, the erector spinae, and the quadriceps. The stretch focus is passive hip flexors and your rectus abdominis. Virasana, or hero. Our main focus is hip and knee flexion and ankle plantar flexion. Our strength focus is our psoas and erector spinae, while our stretch focus is our quadriceps and tibialis anterior. Ustrasana, or camel. Our main focus is our hips, spine, and shoulder extension, neck flexion. Our strength focus is gluteus maximus, the erectors, the latissimus, the triceps, and the sternocleidomastoid. Our stretch focus is our psoas and our quadriceps. Gomukhasana, or cow face pose. The main focus is our hip adduction and external rotation, shoulder internal rotation. Our strength focus is our psoas, our adductors, and lower trapezius. The stretch focus is our gluteus maximus, our gluteus medius, triceps, and anterior deltoid. Konasana, or bound angle. Our main focus is hip flexion, abduction with external rotation. Our strength focus is psoas, the sartorius, the gluteus medius, and external rotators. Our stretch focus is our hip adductors. Savasana, relaxation or corpse pose. The focal motion here is passive hip and shoulder external rotation. It's all about attentive relaxation.